welcome back to StitchPhiles. I'm your co-host, Brandon.
I'm Sarah.
I am Bob. I'm also a co-host. What does that make you, Sarah? You didn't say you were a co-host.
She's a special guest.
Yeah.
Sarah's not thinking straight today. She has a headache.
I've had a headache.
What kind did you have? What'd you say it was?
A special?
A good one?
A good headache.
A good headache.
Yeah. It's
I didn't know there
developed.
was such a thing.
I've had one since pollen started happening.
I've had one since 1980.
Don't push it.
I've had one since May of 1980.
A significant date in my life. All right. So today we're going to talk about pricing specifically for startups and single head owners. So that's going to be the can of worms we're opening today.
Yeah, it's a big can of wiggly brown.
Now I have a headache and a tummy ache. Wiggly brown?
Well, yeah. I was trying to paint a picture for people who aren't watching. You know, just
think
imagine you're using like an old-timey can opener. This is how I envision things. You don't have the electric can opener. You've got the ones. Do you know what I'm talking about? You're young.
Yes.
You put the thing on there and you twist it.
Yes.
That. And you know, and you're open, and you're anticipating something really good being in the can.
Chef Boyardee.
Yeah. And you open it up, and there's just this mass of brown wiggly worms.
Mm-hmm.
That's not what this is about.
And that's what we're getting into today.
Well, and the reason why do you say that? And I'll tell you why I say that.
Because it's going to vary so much based on your location, competition around you.
Yeah.
What else? Oh, yeah, like the material costs, they vary from place to place. The garment costs. I mean, there's a whole lot of variables that go into this squiggly can.
We're not going to tell you what to charge. We're going to tell you how you can come to a price, for the most part, for your embroidery. So hopefully what we tell you today, you can take all of this and that can of worms and pour it all out and dice through it and pick the stuff that you think will work for you.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
It does to me.
If you don't think of it as worms.
It's worms.
Yeah.
That
Not
was,
the best
that was
analogy.
that was a metaphor. So.
Ball of yarn, maybe? A ball of yarn?
Yeah.
You can
A ball
weave
of
it
thread.
into...
Thread. No, a cone of thread.
Yeah.
We don't do yarn.
Anyway, we digress.
Yeah. As always, we are digressing.
All right, so number one thing to think about is your market.
Yep.
And you think about two people that do contract embroidery versus like personalization, small orders.
Custom embroidery.
Yeah, these are some variables that you need to think about off the bat.
You may have a niche where you do nothing but jacket backs. You know, one-offs. We have a couple customers who do that. Very few, because that is a pretty rare market. But there are folks who do that.
Yeah, and it's expensive to do that kind of work, and most people don't realize what it costs to do that, and don't want to pay it when it comes down to it.
Exactly. But we'll talk more about that in just a minute.
Yep.
But what do you get? We all go to shows, so we get asked these questions by new people. And this is not only for new people, but if you've been in business for a while, you kind of understand how to price. So this is geared toward newer embroiderers, people thinking about getting into embroidery or looking at a single head machine for the first time. We get asked this continuously. Well, how do I price it? And again, we can't tell you what to charge. Nobody can. That's, like as Brandon said, that's your market. But these are some of the criteria that you need to take into consideration when you're setting your price. But you talk to customers all the time on the phone. Do you get this question a lot?
Yeah, we get this question too a lot at shows. People will say, "What can I charge for that?" And the thing about those designs is they're not really meant to be sold at a good rate. You know,
it's something that
rate.
Basically they're set just so the machine can run them. We don't have to sit and watch them.
We're not. If anything, the more stitches for us, the better.
Yeah.
Because we take less product to sew. You got to imagine all this stuff goes on the road. And we have to pack a lot of backing. Not necessarily thread. Thread lasts for the most part for a 3-day show. Well, it does. I mean, that dragon design, it's getting pretty low at the last, when we're finished. But
you're packing hats and sweatshirts and pieces of fabric. it needs to be as concise as possible, and to let the machine just do its thing. And
that's when you see these screen printing guys at shows doing a demo. They'll do like a run of shirts, and then that machine won't run again for another 4 or 5 hours, because there's no way on these great big giant automatics that they can sit there and print thousands of shirts all day. I don't know, where would they keep all the T-shirts?
Where would they keep them? Probably in a can of worms.
In a can of worms, right? Wiggly worms. I had a point, then you brought up worms.
Sorry about that.
Oh, I know what you made a really good. You mentioned something a while ago when people ask, "What could I sell that for?" And they're looking at this dragon. And
$1 million.
You tell them, you try to explain to them that it takes 2.5 hours to run, and you're going to go broke selling that thing if you just try to sell it for $20.
Especially just running that on a single head.
On a single head machine, exactly. So that's something that if you were doing like a custom jacket with a great big design on the back, and you were getting a really good price for it, which again we'll get into that here in just a minute, but that's what you would do. But most of your embroidery, as we all know, is left chest, front of a cap. I think that the average embroidery size for a logo is about 7,500 stitches.
That's probably.
Hats are a little bit more. Sometimes they're just letters, but hats tend to be not a whole lot of fill, a lot of satin stitches, which take less stitches. And again, these are generalizations. There's always exceptions to every rule. But for new people, when you do fill stitches, takes a lot of stitches. Satins are the shorter stitches, and it doesn't take as many to cover the same area. So,
all variables you need to think about.
Right.
But that being said, a logo like what's sewn at a trade show or something that takes up a jacket back is pricey.
I like starting to have that conversation with people that are like new to embroidery, because I think it introduces a lot of ideas that they haven't like thought about. Because they're just like, oh, that's a big design, I can charge a lot for it. And it's like people,
they can charge a lot, but can they get it?
Right.
Yeah, it's kind of a niche sort of market, And
again, that goes to knowing your market. Like if you've got your area is saturated with people who just love motorcycle jackets and want to have the whole back. All right, there's your market. Then,
well, and again, too, and I don't want to get off on this tangent either, but that's where applique comes into play.
Correct.
So if you want to save a lot of stitches, if you're doing a lot of jacket backs, applique will save you thousands upon thousands of stitches. But we'll touch on that here in just a minute.
I had a lady call today about that. She was looking at the machine, and that's what she's wanted to do is jacket backs. And I was like, well, you thought about applique? Oh, yeah, I didn't think about that. But that's one way to cut your costs down and time, because stitching the applique down is a much quicker process than stitching those entire numbers or letters or whatever on it.
Yeah, it's less stress on the fabric, too.
Correct.
You're not putting a bunch of thread or a bunch of stitches into a jacket that if you wash it repeatedly, at some point in time, it's going to deteriorate a little bit. But talk about markets and people that are getting into embroidery, I think, or people that we talk to at shows, they have an idea what they want to do. Want to say, well, we want to do schools, this, what their customers may be. But they may not have an idea what they're actually going to be sewing, whether it be caps, jackets, lab coats. So when we talk about knowing your market, there's the custom logo market, which means if I'm a corporate businessman and I come into your shop and I say, you know what, I want 24 shirts with my logo on here, that custom logo has to be created. The other one is personalization, which I go into Sarah's shop and say, hey, Sarah, I want 5 names put on 5 tote bags. That's one type of embroidery. And that also monograms follow along with that too. Monograms, we did a lot of monogramming and personalization, and monograms can be a little more tricky than just putting a name out there. I'll explain that in just a minute what I'm talking about.
But I've said before, like monogram towels, they are my thing.
Well, yeah. Well, but you're high maintenance.
I am. Yeah.
So that's proof of that.
I even take them with me on the road.
So, if we're talking, if we are talking customization, there's going to be a little bit added cost to that because your design has to be digitized. And whether you're doing it or whether you're sending that out, that's
a cost.
That's a decision you have to make. Now, you can say that you're going to do it yourself. That's fine, but you have to buy digitizing software, and you have to learn to digitize if you're new. Which there's a time process with that. You're not really making a lot of. I'm not anti-digitizing. Don't take it that way, but there's a time that takes you away from the machine or someone away from the machine to do the digitizing. Test sew it. Make sure you usually have to go back and edit it. Test sew it on a piece of fabric or whatever before you can actually sell it to your customer. The other thing is you can farm it out to reputable digitizer. We can always help you with that, but there's tons of them out there that do a really good job. So that's something you have to consider. And there's a cost for that. Are you going to pass that cost on to your customer, or are you going to put it into the cost of the items that you're digitizing?
Or charging a digitizing fee.
A digitizing fee or a setup fee like a screen printer would. Personalization or monogramming, that's something that you can do with you still have to have some lettering software. That's keyboard lettering. Choose a font. Either send it to the machine via networking or through the USB, and that's pretty quick. In most softwares, in Wilcom that we sell, you can set up a template to where whatever name you type in there is going to give it that same font every time. There's some restrictions you give it as far as the width and the height. You can do automatic density, automatic underlay, all that stuff for you to where all those names come out looking exactly the same and very uniform. So to me, names and monogramming is simple. And I mentioned monogramming a while ago being a little bit more difficult. It's because monogramming can get very fancy.
It is fancy.
Well, that's why you like it.
That do be why I like it.
But some monograms have not only a 3-letter monogram, but also it will have these little not characters. You know what I'm talking about? Yeah. It'll have some little
like filigree on a
yeah. Some people choose that, so that's going to add to the stitch count, and it's going to take longer to sew. But it depends on what you're offering your customer.
Is it worth it? Yes.
Absolutely.
For you, it's worth it, right? I'm
not toweling off on no rinky-dink Holiday Inn Express towel.
But regardless of what your market is, whether you're going to do customization or what's the other one I said, personalization, you have to know your supply cost.
Yeah.
And that is a fixed cost. Your embroidery machine is a fixed cost, of course. You know what the machine costs, X amount of dollars. But your supply cost is fixed. Your thread, your backing, your needles, any specialty hoops that you may buy. But any of that stuff is a fixed cost too. One thing that I like about embroidery is thread. This right here is 5,000 meters. There is approximately 1 million stitches in that cone of thread right there. So, Sarah, you're smart. How many 5,000 stitch? How many 10,000 stitch designs can you get out of that?
A lot.
A whole lot.
I'll say, don't give me the mathing.
I saw her eyes get really big. Oh, he's going to a math question. But the point is,
I think it was my idea to talk about this, and I'm like, I'm the least qualified. I'm no math doctor.
No. I mean, it's, and you guys, I don't want to take over the whole thing, but just
no. I mean,
you're the only one you're the one that has the most firsthand experience.
Yeah, I mean, you've been doing this a long time.
I've been. Thank you. Thank you. I was not going to say it. Yeah. It was on the tip of my tongue, and I'm like, I'm not saying that.
No, but it's something that gets asked. It gets asked a lot.
And it's very complicated. There's more to it than just.
And there's
what do you want to make per hour?
There's a model of charging per stitch count. Some people do like per hour that it's running. That's kind of a price model I've seen, and I think basically knowing your overhead cost up front is a good starting point, because you know what you've got to pull in a week or a month to keep the lights on and be profitable.
I don't like the per thousand cost for stitches, and let me explain why I don't like that. And everybody's used that for years and years, but let me tell you why. Let's say you take a 10,000 stitch logo with 3 colors, and you put it in the machine, and if it's sewing 1,000 stitches a minute, it's going to take approximately 10 minutes, correct?
Yep.
What if you take 10,000 stitches and it's got 25 color changes in it? And we've seen this. You've just added about 7 more minutes.
Maybe
5 to 7 more minutes to that. So
think about every time it has to trim.
Right.
I mean, there's a lot of factors.
That's why I don't like that.
Yeah.
I like personally the hourly. I tell people all the time, you need to be making between $35 and $50 an hour on your machine.
Yeah.
Now, how you get there is up to you. Whether it be the garment and adding markup to the garment, which we'll talk about in just a minute, or if it's whatever you're charging per 1,000 stitches, if that's how you want to do things. And that's where experience comes into play. If somebody brings you a logo or an idea for a logo and you're looking at it and you say, you'll get to a point to where you'll know about how many, I can get really, really close most of the time how many stitches are in something. It's experience. I can't explain it. And you'll know in your head how long, you have to do a little bit of calculation, how long it's going to take that to sew. That's what I look at. How long is it going to take me to sew 10 pieces with this many stitches? And I'm running that, not how many stitches is necessarily in it, but I'm looking at the time, because you know what they say?
Time's money.
Time is money.
Yeah.
Did they say that?
I've heard
I
it
thought
said.
it was something you made up.
Well, I don't get the credit I deserve for it. I did really say that, but nobody ever gives me credit.
You haven't had one of your coined phrases in a very long time.
I haven't. I'll have to come up with one before this is over.
I think we're good.
And anyway, supply costs. We're talking thread, bobbins. If another thing that we didn't mention either is stock designs. And if you buy our ESP kit, it will come with 5,000 stock designs. Now, if you don't know what a stock design is, I explained it as clip art for embroidery. And
it's a lot of like mascot logos and
corn. I saw corn in it. There's
Basketballs.
Corn.
There's archery things, and there's alligators and swamp deer. You name it. It's a lot of stuff in there. It's pretty cool to look at that little book.
And you can also buy stock designs from Dakota too. They charge you anywhere from, aren't they about $25? Do you remember?
I'm not sure. It's been too long since I've looked. But there are other websites.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, not just Dakota.
Yeah, you can just search stock designs. I say Dakota because, we sell their designs. Plus, they're good. I know they sew very, very good. Very well. Very good. Very well.
Very good and well.
Mike's degree. That's worth the money there.
It's been utilized to the fullest in this job.
But the thread, I was in a 10,000 stitch design, you're going to have something like 0.0005 cents worth of thread in there. I mean, you can't even. We get asked this. Well, how much thread's in it? What's that thread cost? Honestly,
it's not even worth thinking about it.
It's going to be like less than a nickel, less than 3 or 4 cents.
Which in this economy in these days, what a bargain.
Yeah.
Truly.
Bobbins are more expensive than thread is.
And also harder to find, I hear.
Yeah. But what else? Yeah. Now that's going to be your basic cost to do the embroidery. Now, if you're in a retail location and let's say you want to open an embroidery shop and pay rent, then guess what? Whatever your rent costs, electricity, that cost,
insurance
goes up.
I mean, all that stuff.
That's a pretty hard nut to crack with a single head, unless you've got selling other things, like maybe an ice cream shop.
Or you've had screen printing stuff and you've brought in a single head machine.
Yeah, that's completely different. But
engraving.
A lot of
tombstone engraving.
The nice thing about the single head machines is, we have models that'll fit in your house, fit in your garage. So it's an excellent cottage industry because, you're already paying your mortgage.
I know. Industry. Pump the brakes a second.
You never heard of that?
We like that.
Here we go.
We like
See,
that.
I didn't even mean to do that.
Man. It just comes naturally to you.
Is a cottage industry like a home business? Like what they're called nowadays, not in the 1400s.
When they were cottages.
Come over to my cottage.
Well, I started out making horseshoes.
And you ate porridge this morning.
And we used to make...
Is that a real term?
Mm-hmm. Cottage industry is...
Okay.
Or a home-based business. Okay, does that sound better?
Well...
Getting to the 21st century.
Yeah. Does it mean the exact same thing?
Yeah.
Pretty much?
Okay.
Okay.
It's not like they make a cheese out of cottages too.
Yeah. I'll take my horse and buggy out of here when we leave.
I wonder how did it get called cottage cheese, you think?
Wow.
Do you like cottage cheese?
No.
I don't either. It's a texture thing.
I love it. Pineapples and cottage cheese. Oh my goodness, it's delicious. Pineapples.
By themselves.
Pineapples.
Cottage cheese.
Tomatoes.
Oh, yeah. I'm going to get sick.
Salt and pepper. Oh, God, my goodness.
All right.
A cottage business. Is that what it's called?
Cottage industry.
Cottage industry.
Okay. A home business.
Yeah.
Uh-oh. What happened? We had a technical difficulty.
Did you figure out what the problem was?
Yeah, I forgot to delete the last one, so it was still on there.
Can you delete it on your camera?
I just did it.
So that means you can.
I did it.
Okay.
Sorry. We're back.
Yeah, I've lost my train of thought. So
we're talking about overhead costs for not having a home business, but renting out space.
Yeah.
And all that entails.
Right.
For pricing structure. So cottages.
Cottage
Are you for them?
Industry.
Yeah.
So working from home with most, I'm not going to say most, I guess about half the single heads go to houses. What do you think?
I don't know if that's true or not.
Half seems like
a lot.
Yeah. Maybe a third. Maybe, yeah.
Yeah.
It's definitely not uncommon for someone to have a single head or two.
Just was at one on Monday.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm. Was it in their garage?
In their house? Yeah.
They have like a sewing room or an extra bedroom?
It's off of their kitchen. A nice little space set up. He's got really cool stuff on the wall to hang everything. It's Bob, BB, and his wife, Amy. Shout out.
Shout out to them.
They listen to the podcast. They enjoy it.
Well, good. I'm glad.
Super nice, man. They're good family.
And thank you guys for being a customer. We truly appreciate it.
Yeah. Thanks for putting up with John.
I was in a place in Kentucky a few years ago, and they had a bunch of XLs. They cleaned out their living room, and it lined up XLs all around it.
Oh, he was thinking, he's like, I could knock out this wall and put a couple 6 heads. I was like, wow. You're in both feet first. So
yeah, that's not gonna, his wife's not going to let him do that.
No, they've already
She'll
got
smother
plans.
him with a pillow, which is always my plan.
To smother somebody with a pillow?
No, not necessarily.
I don't feel like you'd get away with that.
I think you could.
Absolutely
it would be
not.
a lot harder than some other ways to kill.
You think so?
Oh, for sure.
You've talked about murder twice on this show.
You're going to leave too much DNA.
It's not as messy. You could no. I mean, if your spouse, if you smothered your spouse with a pillow, not that
Kim
I would.
is definitely going to fight back.
She's going to smother me with a pillow.
Yeah. Don't give her any ideas.
It's not going to be a heart attack that gets me or high blood pressure. It's going to be smothered with a pillow because I'm going to push her to her limit and I'm going to go to sleep one night and not wake up. And she's going to call you and your brother next day and say,
"Oh my gosh, you won't believe
he
what
was so
happened."
peaceful. He was so peaceful when he died."
Like I finally did it.
Yeah. No. All right, let's get off that.
You got on the tangent.
Where were we? This guy in Kentucky was embroidering. That's why I thought of pillows. He was embroidering pillows for the Kentucky Derby.
Okay.
His wife would cut the pillows out. You know, the fabric, the square fabric.
I got you.
He would embroider like horses on them. I mean, it was fantastic, beautiful embroidery. And
beautiful horse.
She would sew. It was such a beautiful horse. She would sew the pillows together, and they had somebody would buy them from them. I guess they sold them in the Kentucky Derby gift shop.
That's pretty cool.
Isn't the Derby coming up pretty soon?
I have no idea. I haven't got my hat yet.
Oh,
I always wanted to go.
Do you know that that big? Here's a fun fact. That big robe thing that the horse wears that wins. You know that great big thing.
I already know where this is going.
It's sewn on a bear.
Yeah,
it's our customer in Louisville, Kentucky.
Yeah, we went and got that machine.
Yes, it was him.
Yeah,
that's really cool.
Yeah,
there's all kinds of neat stuff.
I mean, but it is. I mean, I've seen that horse, whoever wins.
Secretariat.
Yeah, they wear this big thing, and I think it's got little pouches on it when they put roses in or whatever. But it's got this ornate embroidery on it. It's sewn. They do it every year for the Derby, and it's so cool. He had one in his office, and you would not believe. Man, I'd love to have that for a sample. There's no way John would give me that.
John, if you're listening, we know that you are.
Yeah.
Do you just hear him talking about smothering people with pillows, John?
I don't know what that's called. A horse robe? What's it called? The metal?
I'm sure it has a name.
There's a name. I'm sure it's a fancy name.
That's probably nothing we'd ever think of.
No.
Anyway, moving on. We talked about other costs, in your house, or if you're going to have an embroidery shop. Okay.
Yeah. Well, I'm assuming if you're buying it a single head, you're probably running it yourself, but employee costs is something to keep in mind too if you're hiring somebody.
Yeah, you got to figure that into the hour.
A good operator is worth their weight in gold.
I know you have can you share if somebody wanted that little table that you had, is that shareable?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, I've got one too. There's little tables out there, and we have them. You can find them on the internet, where you can plug all these numbers in, your piece count, the cost of everything, how many stitches, and it'll tell you what you should be charging, or know what your cost is.
Yeah, and even you can even set your markup percentage on the garment too, and it'll factor all that in, and you can put in your utilities. It is very elaborate.
Can we put a link?
Link in the description.
Cool.
you sent it to me today. And I looked at it. I've got one too.
There are several of them out there. There's some on the Barudan Owners Group. Embroidery Nerds got some stuff on there too. But there's a lot that goes into it, and you can omit stuff in there that doesn't apply to you. Still calculate it out.
Yeah. Let's talk about products for a minute too, and I think a lot of people getting into embroidery may not know this, or people that are already in embroidery should know it. I'm sure they do, but when you become an embroiderer, you can get a wholesale, tax exempt license. You can buy your product at wholesale prices from, let's say, Broder Brothers,
Carolina Made.
Carolina Made. That's who we always did business with. And you get those at wholesale prices, and it will give you an suggested retail price right in their catalog. Matter of fact, if you look in their catalog, it shows the retail price, the suggested retail price. You can charge whatever you want for it, more or less. But you're going to get that. You're going to get that garment when you order from them. They'll tell you what the wholesale price is. Like when we ordered our trade show shirts, what we paid for them, and I think it told us they retail for like $35 or $40. But you need to mark up your garments too, because that's another avenue where you can make a profit. And there's nothing wrong with that, because what you mark it up is up to you. But I will tell you, when we were in business, we usually did 50 to 75%, and in some instances we would do 100%. So if it cost us $10, we would just mark it up to 20, and then add the embroidery on top of that. So
yeah, you have to mark that stuff up,
especially with a single head machine, because if you just get paid for sewing stitches on a single head, you will go broke, unless there is a caveat to that.
An asterisk.
If you're doing names, and we'll get into names. Right. We'll get into names here, and just names and monogramming are that's the exception to the rule. So, and we'll talk about that in just a minute. But you're going to buy your caps, your garment, tote bags, whatever it is you're sewing. You want to check around and get the best price you can on them, and you want to, if you can save your customer a little bit of money on those, it's up to you, but you can also do that too. When we had our business, I always did, and I may have talked about this before, and I adhered to the good, better, best theory, which you get let's just say polo shirts, for example. If you buy a polo shirt for $10, that's your good. You don't want to buy a $2 polo shirt, because you get what you pay for. Plus, it's not going to embroider very well. No, I know you got yours at Goodwill, but
this is $7.86.
Oh, wow! Splurged. He splurged.
I did.
But you had your good golf shirt, or your polo shirt, your better one, and then you had a high end shirt, which you probably didn't sell that many of them. But every now and then somebody would come and say, "Hey, I want a really good name brand. Maybe a Ping golf shirt,
like
because they sell blanks.
Nike shirt.
Nike sells blanks. If you can get the Nike blanks, I think you can get them through Carolina Made. But that shirt's going to cost you probably $25.
Yep.
Wholesale, so you won't have to mark that up
Well, that's why when you go buy them in the store, they're like $75.
Exactly.
I mean, there's a markup on all that stuff.
Well, look at the guys down in Pinehurst selling the what are those, Bobby Jones?
Is that who it is?
Well, they have they rep the Bobby Jones line, but there's another line they sell too. And we were looking.
I know.
It was like $125 for on the tag. So I had the hang tag on it for $125 for a polo shirt.
Wow.
Yeah, it's crazy.
They represent several guys on the PGA Tour. I cannot think of the name. Oh, Peter Millar.
That's it.
It's Peter Millar, they are really good shirts. I'm not going to pay that much for one, but they're people, but there's people who do.
Yeah, we know you got bleach stains on your shirt.
Do I?
One of them.
It's not this one. Well, today's podcast day, I always wear a better shirt.
That's right.
Yeah, this is my Sunday go to meeting shirt.
Looks great.
So, yeah, keep in mind buying your products. You want to buy them, and of course, you want to mark them up, make some profit there, in addition to the profit on that you're going to get on the embroidery. And I put down here in this little outline here the importance of stitch count. And for the life of me, I don't know what I meant when I wrote that down.
I don't know either, because we just kind of debunked that theory.
Yeah.
It seemed really important at the time,
It
though.
did because
There's an explanation.
We don't want to forget about this.
Oh, here's what it is. It's not that important.
Well, let me touch on this. I got to pull something out of my hat.
Is that where it's coming from, or is it coming from the other end?
It's coming out of my hat. Well, it is important.
And here's why. Right after this commercial break.
No, you're going to know how many. It will. All right, that leads up to, if you're doing so many per hour, and we just talked about, I prefer the hourly rate.
Yeah.
So if you have 25,000 stitches or so, and you're only sewing 2 an hour, you're going to have to charge more to get your hourly rate, right?
Yeah,
so
yeah.
That's what I was getting at.
Yeah, I guess it could be looked at too as like, if embroidery is not your main forte, somebody comes in, it's not, you're a screen printer and you're just getting into this. Maybe that's a more appropriate way to factor in your pricing.
Yeah.
Yeah, there you go. That's the importance of it.
Well, I mean, and it shows too, when customers come up, and what's one thing they always ask? How long does it take to do that? This all the time. How long does it take to sew that hat? And I say, well, it takes 30 minutes. And they're like, 30 minutes? And they well, that's only 2 an hour. I'm like, yeah. And then you have to explain to them, you're not going to sew a 30,000 stitch hat.
Yeah.
It's very rare.
That goes from ear to ear with, right. Just very elaborate.
So that's why you have to break it down for them. Because new customers don't know, they just see this really beautiful, elaborate hat, and the more stitches, it's impressive, and it does look good. Mm-hmm. But again, people aren't going to pay for that.
Yeah.
So that's, stitch count. When somebody comes to you, a potential customer, and they want to do a jacket back, and they're probably in their mind, they're thinking $15 or $20 to do this. And if you look at it, it's like, you're probably looking at $150, $175. And
you're taking up your machine for hours on end. That's the other.
But again, to the novice or the new person, they don't know that.
Yeah.
But anyway, we'll get off on that tangent.
Very important, obviously.
Yeah.
So we went over pricing for custom logos or stock designs. Custom logos, there's a digitizing fee for that you have to either add to. And the way that we always did it, if we were doing like a dozen shirts, you had to pay that setup fee. If we were doing, let's say 40 or 50, we would just include it into the price that we quoted, because it was only going to be 15 or most of the time I did the digitizing. 99% of the time I was doing all the logos, but occasionally if I was gone or traveling and I couldn't do it, we would have somebody, we had a couple of digitizers that would do some digitizing for us for a fee, and we'd either pass that along to the customer, or if they were buying enough product, we would just go ahead and say, we
just
give
eat
it
the
to them
cost
for free,
of it.
eat the cost of it, because it wouldn't be that much. So the next thing would be that's different is pricing for names and monograms, and I think there's more money in personalization than anything. Okay, now, let me tell you why. Because you set a flat rate.
Yep.
And we always charge $7.50 or $10 depending on how many stitches and how big it was, because you kind of have an idea how long it's going to take you to sew just satin stitches.
That's the importance of knowing your stitch count.
Exactly.
Right there.
So
did you throw it?
No, I got my orange aid.
What hot dang.
So, and while ago, I you know what, I made the comment that when you need to do the garment, sell them the garment. This would be the exception, is if someone brought you a bunch of tote bags and you had 10 names to do at $10 a piece. That's $100.
Yeah.
That's really good money.
Yeah, so you're not charging.
And you can do those 10 names in about 30 minutes. So we did a ton of names, and I would rather do names anytime. And that's why you see a lot of something like Personalization Mall, Things Remembered. A lot of these personalization companies do so well is because they charge a flat fee for a name. And of course, it can't be Christopher Columbus III, twice removed from Spain. It has to be fit within their space or whatever it is that you're sewing. But that's the exception of not buying the garments, because we did a lot of beach towels for the schools that they would buy. We did a lot of tote bags, little backpacks, and we charge flat fee, $10 or $7.50. It depends on how big the name was, where it was going. But nobody ever blinked. I mean, you pay $10. What do you pay to get your fancy towels monogrammed?
It's $10. Yeah, I've got it. I don't buy them anymore. I've got so many, but when I did,
I mean, have you ever got anything monogrammed? No.
Mm-mm. I don't think I've ever paid anyone to do it. I think it's
like you do your own now.
Yeah, now I
just come in here and
I think it was only gifted. Like I had my Nana would always get us like a backpack, and have our initials on it or something. So I don't think I ever paid for it myself. But those are like very popular gifts.
Yeah.
Little monogram name on something.
People like to see their name on stuff.
Yeah.
Especially for kids that are going to lose things, It's nice.
Like every kid in the world.
Every child.
It's like, hey, you're not Johnny. It's his backpack. Give it back.
Yeah. Unless it's a warrant for your arrest, then you don't want to see your name on that.
Yeah.
Okay.
I've seen that too often.
Do you think jury duty changed Bobbin?
No, and he's a dark individual, period.
I'm not. I saw some things that I didn't think I'd ever seen in my entire life. His pictures.
Yeah, you love
what they
pictures.
say. Here's one for you. A picture's worth 1,000 words.
Yeah. Picture's worth 1,000 stitches.
That's right. I already said you need to mark up your garments.
Yeah.
Okay.
Bulk pricing. Let's talk about that.
Yeah. You need to have a price set for 1 to 12 pieces. And with a single head machine, let's face it, you're going to do 1 to 36, 1 to 48. I'm not saying you can't do 500 caps. I know one time me and your mom we did 200 caps in a weekend, and that was tough. But it was a small stitch count. But I think it took us 3 days to do those.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised.
And we vowed we would never do it again. It's just too much work.
We made a blood oath.
Yeah. I mean, the money was okay, but I mean, we just sat there and framed caps all weekend and sewed them. And, we got them done. The customer was happy, but geez, it was a lot of work. And I wouldn't do that. From then on, we said, we're keeping it down to 24 to 36 pieces to keep it manageable. Here's what you got to think about. If, depending on your business model or your customers, if you spend 3 days sewing all those hats, you don't have time to do anything else.
Right.
And it puts you behind the 8 ball. And at that time we were doing, had 4 or 5 orders stacked up, and the customer brought these 200 hats, and we said, well, we got this other stuff to do, and you don't want to disappoint your customers. You want to get it to them as quickly as you can. But, we had to move some stuff around, and yeah, that was tough. We didn't do it again, and I wouldn't. I'm like, if we were doing this a lot, I'd have me a 6 head.
For sure.
So, but yeah, once you get, over a dozen pieces, as a rule of thumb, I would knock off 10 to 15% depending on the customer. And that's another thing too. If you've got a really good repeat customer that gives you a lot of business, it's a good idea to maybe give them a little bit more, a little special, maybe some more special pricing. You don't have to, but we did a ton of stuff for Trinity Elementary and Trinity Middle School. Did a ton of stuff for them. And when they started buying a lot of stuff, we'd give them a little bit better deal. And they never asked for it. But we did give them better pricing for bulk. And one year we did a bunch of beach towels with teachers' names on them. I got a blanket in my truck under the seat that's got, I did this, I spelled their name wrong.
And it was
supposed to be Patsy. I think it was Pasty.
So you kept it for your bald head.
I kept Pasty's blanket. I have a pasty blanket.
Your pasty white skin.
Pasty. So Pasty didn't get hers.
But Patsy did.
Well, I was thinking, I told Kim, I said, well, why don't we take it over there? And she says, who's Patsy? My name's Pasty. That didn't happen. So we had to eat that blanket.
Yeah. Or you just kept it. You didn't eat it.
So anyway, do a little break on, bulk orders. It's up to you to decide how many you want to do at a time. And here's another thing too. Let's say somebody came to you with 500 hats and you don't want to do them. You can always farm those out to someone that has a 6-head machine. Yeah. They'll knock those things out in a few hours. And you can say, well, I'm not making that profit. No, but you're making something. If you make $2 for not doing anything, but just taking them to the embroiderer and bringing them back, you're making something and you're keeping your customer happy. So we never did that.
You just took up your entire weekend.
No, I know one time, I had access to a 4-head on a couple of jobs. We did some beanies with some logos on them, and I sewed those on a 4-head. So, I did that a couple of times. I'm not going to tell you where the 4-head was. Barely showroom. So we did that. I felt bad about that for about 2 minutes. But and let's talk about caps a little bit. Caps, pricing on caps is maybe a little different. And for the simple reason, most of your caps are going to be on the front. But if you have to sew on the side, the nice thing about the Barudan machine, and most new embroidery machines, you have the ability to sew, from ear to ear, 270 degrees or about 14 and a quarter inches. So you can set everything up at one time. I don't see that much embroidery on both sides of caps, but you'll see it on the front and then you'll see it on the back. Now you can't do the back of the cap on a cap frame on anybody's. So it has to be rehooped. You need to charge for that. You need that's a second placement.
That's something to think about too on sleeves too. Like if you do left chest,
if you're doing left chest and sleeve, left chest, and for a while collars were big.
Why?
I don't know, but they back in the 90s collars were big.
Can't wait till that comes back.
Do a little logo, a little logo on the collar. But now sleeves are big, left chest. You've got that's like 2 logos, 2 places, because you have to hoop that every time. Yep. It's more stitches. So you have to treat it like 2 designs because you can't sew them both at the same time. So you have to run all your left chests and then rehoop everything and do all your right or left sleeves or wherever else you're doing it. The other thing is on caps is puffy foam. You need to charge more for puffy foam. 2 reasons. Number one, you have to buy foam now.
Right, material cost.
I cannot remember what a sheet of puffy foam costs, but you have to buy packs. Is it packs of 10? That's what we get it. I can't remember what it costs, but most puff foam designs are the front with letters. A piece about 3 inches by 3 inches square usually will cover it. So you'll get a lot of pieces of foam out of a sheet. What are those sheets? 8 by 12? Something like that?
Yeah.
I think they are.
That. Yeah, we get 9 pieces out of it, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The other thing, too, is that unless you're a really good digitizer and can digitize for foam, you're probably going to have to send that out. Not everybody can digitize for foam, so there's an added cost there. Some embroiderers or some digitizers charge more to do foam. Foam is a little tougher to do than regular embroidery. You usually have to slow your machine down a little bit more, so it's not going to be quite as productive. So you need to make sure that you're charging a little bit extra to the customer for doing that. And then if you're doing the back of a cap, again, that's going to be a rehooping. It's not going to be not very many stitches because there's not a lot of room on the back of a cap. It's usually a name or maybe a small logo. But you need to keep that in mind too. So all those things need to be calculated into the equation for pricing.
Do you consider like more time for quality control for like puffy foam?
Well, yeah, that's a good point because you're going to hit it with a little bit of heat. Yeah,
not too much heat.
I don't want to singe it now.
She's the heat queen right there.
I'll never
Keeps
forget.
me warm during the trade shows.
Yeah, it was more used as a personal heater than actually shrinking the foam down.
But yeah, you need to peel the foam off, which is pretty easy. But there's always going to be some loose foam that pokes through.
Might tuck a little bit in, and then
you want to
hit
do
it
that.
with the heat gun.
Just like you said, the QC is you got to do a little bit.
It seems like more than on flats.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, absolutely, no doubt. Something else that I threw in here was pricing for difficult to hoop items. So what I mean by that is, let's say you got an order for 12 Carhartt jackets. Can you do them on the blue Barudan hoop? Absolutely, you can.
Do you want to?
You're going to have carpal tunnel. So
yeah.
Let's just say that you get an order for 12 jackets and you have the blue hoop and you're like, man, I'm struggling with this. You need to go buy a Mighty hoop, magnetic hoop, which the biggest one is it's $275 for the 13 by 16.
Oh, how much it cost?
$250.
Yeah. Is it I think it's $249.
Maybe it is.
I think.
Yeah. But anyway,
don't quote me.
Now you can't charge that to your customer the whole $250, but for that particular job, you may add $1 to it.
Yeah.
To kind of get that money back that you had to buy to do those jackets. Those are little things that we did. There's a few times that I usually borrowed frames, but if you had to buy a particular frame to get this job, then you might quote it just a little bit more to try to help you cover the cost of that, and hope it's something. If you got 12 jackets and that was the only jacket you ever did, well, you kind of went in a hole on that deal.
Yeah.
But you have to either say, I don't do jackets, or I'm going to start doing more jackets, and now I've got the hoop to do it. So I feel more
forever.
Yeah, I feel more confident about doing jackets. So those are some of the things that go into the pricing. Now let's get into the actual pricing part of it. So as a general rule, and these are some things that I jotted down over the years, to figure out how many stitches are in a design. If you don't have the experience to look at it and say it's got about 5,000 stitches or whatever, as a general rule, 1 square inch of fill stitches is about 1,200 stitches. So you can do the calculation, measure it, get the square inches. If it's 2 inches by 3 inches, that's 6 square inches. 6 12s, that's 72. Yeah, 6
So
12.
just say 7,500.
7,500 stitches for that. So you can kind of figure if it's a lot of fill, you can figure out what the stitch count's going to be. An inch of satin stitches is about 150. That's what I've always used, 150, 175. So if that's got a satin border around it, and let's say that would be 6.
This is going to get harder for me to
10.
do.
That'd be 10 inches at 150 stitches. An inch, that would be 1,500 stitches.
Cue the fireworks.
That's right?
I think so. I got lost whenever you start talking about the border. I was like,
no, if it's fill and you got a border around it,
I got it
around it, then this is a general rule how you can kind of look at it and guess and say it's so that whole design is going to be about 9,000 stitches.
Yeah. We'll take your word for it.
That sounds right.
I'll drop an atomic bomb sound effect in that.
So my point to this is, if you're looking at it and you say that's 9,000 stitches, and the way that I'm figuring it, I'm not looking at a cost per 1,000 stitches. So let's say that's the way that you want to do it, Sarah. Let's say you charge $1 1,000. It's 9,000 stitches. What are you getting out of that? $9, right? Mm-hmm. Okay. 9,000 stitches. How many of those can you produce in an hour on your machine? How many can you sew?
What is how fast you run your machine?
Let's say 850 to 900.
And it's how many stitches? 9,000? Mm-hmm. I don't know. Math. I can't do it. I need a calculator.
Okay. If it's 1,000.
I still can't do it.
If it's 1,000 minutes, you got 60 minutes.
I'm gonna price this right at $1. I don't know. I can't break that down.
Okay.
Here's what I do know. It's going to make more sense for you to charge it figure it out hourly. You'll make more money that way.
I'm talking to the people who want to do it, who want to do $1 1,000.
Yeah, you'll make more money. So charging by hour though.
If you're doing 1,000 stitches a minute, and it's 9,000 stitches.
Okay, that's 9 minutes.
That's 9 minutes.
Did I get it right? Okay, so give yourself in between, let's say, a minute for setup in between.
No, you got 2 hoops. You're going to be able to pop that one out and pop the other one
fair
on.
Enough. Fair enough.
But there is something called frame time.
Yeah, I was going to say you got to factor that in.
Right.
Factor it in. Cottage cheese.
I'm going to make it easy for you. Let's just say 6.
It's not easy for me. It's called math.
7 nines would be 56. So you're not going to get 7.
No.
You're probably going to get 5 or 6 an hour.
5 or 6 pieces in an hour.
Right?
Yes. Fair enough.
So if you're getting 5 or 6 pieces an hour, let's say 5 pieces an hour. All right. Let's say you're a slow embroiderer, and I'm not saying you are, but just say you out there in listening land, if you're a slow embroiderer, and you're getting 5 an hour. So you're making what? $45 an hour, mm-hmm. Right? Which is not bad, right? Now, so if I'm looking at that and it's got a bunch of trims in it, like I said a while ago, and let's just say you take that same logo and let's say it went from 3 colors to 7 colors. Mm-hmm. It's doing all these color changes. That's going to slow you down to maybe what? 4 pieces an hour.
Yeah.
So now you're only getting $36 an hour. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's what I said. It makes more sense to charge, to think of it in an hourly concept than stitches, like how many stitches are in the design.
So that's where experience comes in. We're looking at that design, the customer's saying, and you're looking at it and it has all these color changes in it, and you know it's going to really slow it down. Then you have to calculate in your head or with a calculator.
Clearly not in my head. I'll have to go to somebody.
On the low end, you want to make $37 an hour on the low end. Now, I'm not talking, this is not including the cost of your garment either. So we're just talking flat stitches here. So, and you want to make, if you can make 50 an hour, and on some deals, some jobs, you can easily make $50 an hour when you figure in the cost of your garment and the cost of the stitches. So if you're only getting $4 an hour on the stitch part, then you have to charge, you definitely want to sell them the item, and you want to make more on the garment to make up for that. Mm-hmm. Does that make sense to you? Because if you go by flat out stitches, you're going to have some jobs where you're kind of breaking even. So, and sometimes you need, I've said this a million times, you become a garment salesperson as much as you do an embroiderer, because you're selling, especially on a singlet machine, you're selling that person a cap, you're selling them a tote bag, you're selling them a shirt, whatever it is that you're selling, you buy that in wholesale and you mark it up. Because if you've got these items that have a lot of colors in them, mm-hmm. or a lot of stitch count, that if you do pure stitch count, you're going to make much less money than if you do the hourly thing. And that's where you've got to take all this stuff into consideration, get away from cost per 1,000 stitches and get into cost per item with the stitch count and the garment. And that's where you're going to, that's my theory. And look, people do it how they want to do it. I'm just telling you the way that I do it. And I think it comes out better when you say, I want my machine. What do I have to do to get to $40 an hour or $50 an hour or whatever. And you got a X amount for the stitches and X amount for the garment.
Got it.
Questions?
No, my brain hurts from trying to do math.
Does it sound complicated?
No, it's
just the math.
The math is complicated.
You start talking about math and my head goes somewhere else.
Yeah, I literally thought about like, what am I doing later on today? I'm just kidding.
Well, the hat you're wearing right there is an applique hat. Mm-hmm. So that hat right there, it doesn't have. It's probably got about 35, maybe 4,000 stitches in it, but it's got a lot of trims in it, and I can tell by looking at it. So it's going to take a lot, even though that's a low stitch count, and even though it's applique, it's going to take longer than you think to sew that on there. But if that were all fill, you couldn't get 3 an hour out of that.
No.
That would be a ton of fill on that patch.
It's a beautiful hat.
It is beautiful. But that's why patches on hats have become so popular, is because it's minimal embroidery.
Yeah.
People like the look. It's a fashion thing.
High fashion.
I've got applique.
You do.
So
high fashion at this table.
Plus
I've got a $7 shirt on.
Printing. It's got printing on it. They printed that.
Yeah, the logo. I don't think that's printed, bud.
Yeah, it is. It's not embroidered.
That's printed.
But
it's sublimation. But look, it doesn't have many stitches at all in it.
You probably paid $30 for that hat.
I didn't pay nothing for it. Somebody bought it for me. Your mother.
This was $18.
I got one.
It's a Richardson 112.
We bought those on a fishing trip.
We did.
Anyway, I hope that makes sense. It does to me. It makes sense to me. And if you have any questions, let us know.
Yeah. Don't ask me about math. If I have access to a calculator and several sheets of paper, I can do it.
And a slide rule?
Yeah. I can't do it in my head. I cannot. I'm horrible at numbers. I always have been. I'm horrible at most things.
I at least need to see it. You know,
yeah.
I can't
conceptualize anything.
We have a lot more tools now than we did before. I mean, once you learn how to guesstimate how many stitches are in a logo, like if a customer brings you something and you know how many stitches are in that particular logo, or you have an idea, then that's the key to it. Mm-hmm. Now, if you have the logo and you pull it up in your software or on the machine will tell you how many stitches are in it. The machine will also tell you at whatever speed you're running it, how long it's going to take. And when we first came out with that, I thought it was a gimmick, and it's not. It is really accurate.
It's super accurate.
Extremely accurate, and you can watch it change as you speed up or slow down the machine. And I've literally timed it.
Well, that's the way I do it. Like when somebody asks me to show, I'm like, well, this is how long it takes to do it, and then I can better guesstimate that way than like you spitting numbers at me. Can't digest them.
But think about it this way: if you have 10,000 stitches of nothing but fill stitches with no trims in one color, you could sew that in 10. You could sew that in 10 minutes at 1,000 stitches a minute with as long as you don't run out of bobbin and the thread doesn't break, right?
Yep.
So, other than changing out the frame, you're going to get one finished in about 10, 11 minutes.
Yeah.
Right? Because it's going to slow down, speed up, and all that stuff.
And how many 10-minute sections are there in an hour?
There's 10. 6.
I got him.
There's 6.
Yes.
No, there's 6. I caught it. There's 6. But again, I look at, and I think this is the best way to do your pricing is to take that hour segment and say, how much work can I do in that hour based on all this criteria that I have, and how much money am I going to make? Mm-hmm. Now, again, you can do the $1,000 if you want to do that. That's fine.
That's kind of the standard you hear a benchmark for pricing.
And remember when we talked to Robert Elrod a few weeks ago. He also said, I want to know what my machine's making an hour. That's what I want to know. I don't want to know how many I'm making per piece, because you could take 2 single heads and 2 operators. You may sew 6 an hour. He may sew 4 an hour.
It's going to be 3.
So your machine's not making as much per hour as her machine is. You follow me?
Yeah, I'm with you.
I hope that makes sense. It sounded complicated, but in my mind, it's not. And if anybody wants to talk to me about it, I'll explain it to you better. But
we'll send them right over to you.
Or if you want to use
we'll
one of
post
those,
his cell phone number in the description.
especially this weekend.
Yeah. All righty. Well, it was informative for sure.
Do you feel like you learned? Sorry, do you feel like you learned anything?
I feel like I learned something, and I feel like this is something nice for people that just have no idea of where to start with pricing. I think this is a good resource.
It comes up a lot online, and not as many people calling that ask. At least not. I don't get that many people, but yeah, people ask, and it's good to be able to point them in a direction, or at least give them some idea where to start.
Well, again, by doing it hourly, because your machine may not run 8 hours a day, and a lot of times single heads don't. They run by the job. But if you're running 4 hours a day, and let's say you're making $40 an hour, that's $160 a day. That's pretty good. Mm-hmm. And that's the thing to me. What makes embroidery with a single head, you're not going to get rich with a single head because you can only sew one piece at a time, of course. And there's a limit to how many, you can't take 1,000-piece job and expect to get it done in a timely manner. Right. I mean, can you take that job? Sure you can.
How many weeks do you have
exactly.
to do it?
Is your customer going to wait, a month for you to get 1,000 caps done? No, they're not. And that's why it's so important. You can make money with small runs easily, but you have to make X amount of dollars an hour. And one thing, when we got into embroidery, we leased our first machine, and our payment was X amount of dollars, and it's $400 a month, $380 a month. And I started doing the math. I'm like, that's one or two good jobs.
Yeah, exactly.
And I always looked at it that way. If I get 2 jobs, even if I make zero profit for me,
you're paying for your machine.
My machine payment is made.
Yeah.
The rest that I do that month,
that's all going
is
to
gravy. That's gravy.
That's what they call it.
When I open that can, I don't see worms.
Of worms and cottage cheese.
And gravy on top.
I see gravy. Ugh. That's what I see.
This is gross.
It is real gross.
So that's really how for a small business with a single head, and let's say they're working out of their home, that's really the way to look at it. Is one really good job or 2 jobs, a couple dozen hats, or maybe a dozen shirts and a dozen hats. You've made your payment for that month.
Yeah.
I don't know what the average lease payment is or on a machine. We don't get into that much. I'm guessing
I have a calculator for that as well.
450, 475 probably for for 5-year note. And don't quote us on that. I'm just throwing a number out there. I think I'm pretty close. It's going to be under $500, I think. Maybe less than that if you got good credit and a down payment. But that's not much.
No,
and you don't have to worry about, oh my goodness, I got a machine payment to make. So as long as you've got the business and you follow this criteria of charging for the garment and for the stitches, and you say, I want, I wouldn't take a job if I'm only making $25 an hour on my machine. I'm not going to take it. It's not worth it. It's not. Because if I only have 2 hours of runtime, it's making $50. You're selling yourself short, really. So if somebody, let's go back to this crowd, this 9,000, whatever I said it was, 9,000 stitches, $9, $9, let's say $9, and somebody's bringing you the garment. Look, you're making a whole lot less money.
Yeah.
Then look what you're leaving on the table.
Yeah.
I mean, can you make it? Yeah, you're not going to make very much of it. So, another thing on pricing too. When we first started, we didn't know what to charge. We had no idea what to charge. But we called around, and there's nothing wrong with doing this. Seeing what your competition's doing. You need to know what your competition's doing. We did not undercut. We did not go into it saying I'm going to sew cheaper than the guy down the street. We never did that. We had people come to us and say, well, this guy will do it cheaper. We always said, okay, fine. And they would say, well, you don't want to, nope, I don't. And they'd be like, okay, see ya. Sometimes you would see them. A lot of times you would see them. They would come back. Sometimes you'd never see them again because they were just looking to get it done as cheaply as possible. Now, one thing that we always promised was getting them the items when we told them. If we told them be ready by Friday, be ready by Friday. We always folded them, always put them back in the bag. We always stacked them by sizes. If it was here around town, we would deliver it. I saw embroiderers just stuff stuff into a box.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
And barely fold it. But we always folded it really nicely. If it came in the paper, we'd save that. If it had a tag on it, we would put the tag back on it. If we had to take it off, the hats were all folded back. Sometimes we would put the cardboard back in it, put it back in the sleeve, put it back in the box. And presentation was very, very nice. Another thing that we would do is if it was a logo that I knew would sew on a cap, and we would do some left chest stuff, I would throw in a couple caps for free. Mm-hmm. And you wouldn't believe how many times people would say, "Oh, you do caps?" We're like, "Yeah, here's your couple."
That's a classy move.
They would come back and say,
for that.
They would come back and say, "I want to get. I didn't know you did caps."
That's high class popping.
Yeah. Hey,
I'm low class brand.
Yeah, I'm not as dumb as I look. I got ideas. I got ideas. But anyway, those are a few tips. You mentioned a while ago QC, quality control. Make sure your stuff looks good.
Oh, yeah.
And I think embroiderers are their own worst critic. I see every stitch. I've done logos before, and I just could not get it right, and it would bug me to death. Customers see it, and they were thrilled. And I keep seeing that one little stitch right there that just bugs me, and I just couldn't get it to do right for whatever reason.
You get the opposite of that too. People that are overly critical or want something that's not really possible too.
Yeah. We had one. Sharon's best friend's brother would never do embroidery for this guy again.
And I bet they were free to him, weren't they?
Pretty much, almost. Well, he went and bought the hats for one thing, and I didn't want to do them, but I didn't want to make my sister mad. And we didn't make any money on this whatsoever. And I thought the caps were really as good as we could get them. They were really cheap caps, where like the bill was like this way and the cap was facing this way.
My favorite.
And you could not get him straight. And boy, he was like, we did the best we could, and he just was not happy. He ended up getting them for free. I just told him, I said, "Dude, just take them." And he had the gall to come back and want more. I'm like, "No, we're not doing that. I'm not doing it."
Well, we hope this is informational to you. I now have a headache, Sarah.
Yeah.
So what did we learn today, boys and girls, from this podcast? What's one thing that you learned? I'll let Sarah marinate on it. She has a headache and she's not thinking straight.
Cottage
industry. Okay.
Didn't know what that was.
That's what you learned today.
I've got a pretty good idea how this works. I can't do it in my head. I can't do anything in my head. It is a mess up here. If I can sit down and write it out or give me time with a calculator, I can give you a pretty good idea what things should cost, but I can't do it on the fly. That's just my brain power.
What did you learn, Sarah?
I didn't realize, since we don't pay for the thread, I didn't realize how little your cost was with thread. Mm-hmm. And I feel like that just adds on to the idea that like you need to invest in good thread.
Oh yeah. For what it costs you for a nice high quality thread.
Yeah.
And what it takes for design, it's not that much. So if you're pinching pennies on your thread, shame on you.
Yeah. I didn't get into the cost of backing and all that stuff, but really it's the cost is just minimal for all this. There's a cost to everything. There's a cost to the thread. It's so small. There's a cost to the backing. It's so small. But I see people who try to buy the cheapest stuff they can. They don't buy quality, and I'll put a plug in for Madeira. Their thread, and there's other good threads out there. We partner with Madeira. We just don't have a lot of issues with their thread. And to me, that's the most important thing. Mm-hmm. Is, it costs more than some of this cheap stuff you get from other companies. I'm not going to throw anybody under the bus, but you get what you pay for. You have fewer thread breaks with it. They have more colors than I can mention.
Also, you've kind of mentioned before, if they sit for a while, they might not be as good. I don't think we've ever had a problem with any of the thread here, and it's been in the closet for a while, some of it.
Yeah.
We don't. Yeah, I don't think we have any problem with it ever.
No, some of that stuff never gets used, and we'll pull it out and put it on a machine. I don't know. People want to complain.
My only complaint is bobbins aren't as good as they. I just don't. I think the quality of bobbins isn't as good as it used to be, and it's not the bobbin thread; it's the way they're wound.
Oh, I don't have that problem.
Well, you know, if you were anywhere besides the United States, you would probably be winding your own.
I'm in Archdale. I'll do it myself.
You do it by hand.
By hand.
You literally wind it this way, right?
Yep.
You know, we make bobbin winders. Right?
There's no need. I am a bobbin winder.
He is a bobbin winder.
And you're bobbin.
And I'm bobbin.
I wound you up.
Well, the bobbin doesn't fall too far from the box.
On that note.
All right. This has been, I think it's been fun. I feel like I did all the talking.
No, it's good. You have the knowledge. Yeah. If it would be me rambling and not making a lot of sense, especially if I had to calculate things. So thank you for doing it.
Yeah. It was good.
Well, I'm glad.
Thanks for listening, everyone. If you have any questions, let us know.
Yeah, if you
I feel like you just ran out of battery.
Or if who, me?
Yeah, he was like,
it's coffee time.
I'm with you. I think I need something.
I got to have a cup of coffee. I'm about to die here. What was I going to say? Oh, let us know in the comments how you price. You know,
yeah, please.
And this is not. Hey, I'm not telling you this is the way you do it. This is the way.
That was kind of the point starting off.
Yeah.
Like, this is merely a place to start.
Yeah.
And there are lots of templates out there and calculators and this, that, and the other that are great. So, yeah.
Well, there's going to be people who want to know down to the 10th of a cent, and there's nothing wrong with that. You can do that. You can do that with some of these templates. Mm-hmm. I mean, if you want to sit down and figure all this out, you can. I'm just giving you a general idea, and most of it is again, I wish I could tell you what to charge. Like, oh, well, you should charge $10 for a left chest. I can't tell you that because this, as Brandon said in the opening, depending on where you are in the U.S. or in any other country, I don't know. Here's going to be less where we live because it's a small town, rural area. Yep. But I'll tell you, people will pay more for good quality work that's delivered on time and that's packaged right when you're not just stuffed into a box. All that stuff that goes along with it, people will pay for that. Not everybody will. There are people who just shop on price, and I've said this a million times. That's not our customer. Mm-hmm. If you're a price shopper, you can go look somewhere else because
cheap ain't good and good ain't cheap.
It's not us. And Kim and I, my wife, we had the same philosophy. If you're looking for the cheapest, what did I say?
You said it right.
Oh, it was our philosophy. We're not out here to undercut everybody. Yeah. We're not. This is our price, and if you don't want to pay that, that's
burning
fine.
bridges with that type of stuff too. And I think we've said it before. There's plenty of room for everybody in the industry. This customer might not be for you, but for somebody else down the road, and good for them. As long as they're happy at the end of the day, we're good.
Exactly.
All right. Anything we need to plug, promote? What's the shows? They're coming up.
Yeah, the next shows are not for a while. September. Charlotte and Fort Worth are in September.
I got a show next week.
Oh, yeah.
Canada?
Yeah, if anybody in the
United Arab Emirates. Where are you going?
In the Toronto area. We have a few people from New York that come to that show.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah, I had a customer last year who bought a single head that came to the show. But I think they've relaxed the COVID restrictions. Going into Canada, I got to take a freaking, what is it, a PCB test or PCR? What's it called?
PCR.
Pabst Blue Ribbon.
PBR test.
I got to take a Pabst
How many
Blue
PBRs can you drink for the plane ride?
And to get back into the States, which kind of, I'm not going there. I mean, I've been dewormed, and they ought to let me in. But anyway,
yeah, those are the next shows, September. You're going to be traveling for a bit, so
I got a bunch of travel coming up.
Yeah, we might.
Maybe
we'll get them to you as often as we can. Thanks for being patient with us. It's
that time of year when we don't have any shows, but I'm doing a lot of traveling.
I've been tough, like I've not been home.
Yeah,
I'm tired, but that's the life on the road.
The life of an embroidery industry.
The traveling salesman.
Yeah.
All righty. Well, thanks for listening. As always, The episodes come out when they come out. Just subscribe and you'll get them when they just show up on your phone or whatever device you have.
Hey, it's growing. The podcast is growing. I get a little thing that tells there's the downloads every week are increasing. You noticed that? Why are you laughing?
You're just funny. You're just funny.
I'm tired. I'm having a hard time getting I feel like I talked for 45 minutes.
Oh, you did.
I did.
That's good. It's 55 minutes. Yeah.
I need some coffee so bad.
Okay, we'll get you an IV drip.
Give me some coffee.
Yeah, it is growing. I think it's all because you guys listen.
Yeah,
and share,
we appreciate it. And leave a comment. Good. I mean, even if you don't like it, if you think we're stupid or whatever,
we know that.
We don't. You don't have to tell us because we know it. But I mean, if there's something you don't like or whatever, tell us. We're big kids here.
Yeah, I do get my feelings hurt easy.
We may block you, but no, I'm just kidding.
Just kidding.
No, we appreciate everybody. We truly do, and this is a lot of fun. It's more fun than I thought it would be.
It's good. I hope it's helpful.
Ideas for topics. Send it to Sarah. Sarah monitors everything.
Yeah.
She's the.
What's the?
Barudan StitchPhiles at gmail.com.
Okay.
What's the what? All right, we need to go.
We
everyone's
tired. We all need coffee.
I think it died again. Well, there's no point in starting it because we're internet. Hey, the end of this, it's going to be cool because it's going to go to black. You'll think, we all just got.
Are you still there?
Yeah, we're here, but that video will be off.
But the talking will be going.
These aren't connected. You are done.
I know that.
Bye, guys.
All right, bye, everybody. Thank
Sayonara.
you. I'm waving at the camera. They can't see it.
Is it off?
Can of worms.
The dot's on.